all feelings are for feeling, not just the easy ones, the hard ones too. All feelings are for feeling. And the only thing worse than feeling it all is missing it all.
The moment you can transfer the power of my idea to our idea is the moment you accelerate its opportunity to get done.
I'm so grateful to my former self for having the audacity to dream such a dream and to be so naive in thinking that we could succeed. But I'm so glad that my former self had the courage to do these things, because I sit now in that future seat in abundance. And I sit now in a life that is beyond how specific I dreamed it. And I still have the challenges on what I want to create going forward, but I know that it was only because I say it this way, like I had the stupidity to think that I would succeed, but it required that kind of carefree, I'm going to put all my passion in this project regardless of how I'm taken care of on a day-to-day basis, because for me, that passion and that project is the reward.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Being able to design my own day and do it in the most efficient way is a non-negotiable for me. I'm a bit of a time management nerd, so when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and effective to get the most out of my day, I want to share it with everyone. So here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and it's called Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized professionally and personally. And my to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, and task is captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. We are in lockstep. Monday.com is like having a brand new operating system. Everything has its own home, deadline. You can see the team members associated with the tasks, and it's color coordinated, so you can easily navigate your own task list. We all have multifaceted jobs, businesses, and lives. With Monday, you're able to keep all of these components organized in their own compartments, but you're also one click away from seeing the big picture and how they all integrate together. Creating systems and procedures within your day and business saves a lot of time. For example, my team and I have a dedicated Monday.com board for this very podcast. Did you know that there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast ready for air? It's the same exact process every single time. And it's a system that we have put into place. So we know the various key steps are assigned to certain people, and we've mapped out the entire process from start to finish within this one board. This allows us to be streamlined. It cuts back on the amount of emails exchanged as well as the amount of meetings needed. One feature I love is that my social media content calendar is built inside of Monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use, I like, and it's embedded into my overall calendar as well. Another feature we use every single day is the Google Doc integration. You know I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into Monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer, which is extremely distracting and inefficient. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to hey.monday.com/Amy Jo Martin to start your free trial today. That's hey.monday.com/Amy Jo Martin. Hello, 2021. I am saying see ya to 2020 by looking back on some of my favorite interviews from last year. This is the second best of 2020 episode for Why Not Now, so check out the first one if you missed it. In this episode, you'll hear from New York Times bestselling author Glennon Doyle, former head of creative and innovation at Disney, Duncan Wardle, and Grammy award-winning singer-songwriter Jason Mraz. They all have some incredible words of wisdom to take us into 2021. Let's begin with Glennon Doyle. I had the pleasure of speaking with her about her book, Untamed, which was wildly successful, if you haven't heard of it. It was the top listened to book on Audible, New York Times #1 seller for months and months. And it really just struck a chord with a lot of us. There were themes of courage and living truthfully and wildly, things that we are all about with Why Not Now. And those are things that we're bringing with us into 2021. Of course, I started off with asking her for her Why Not Now moment, and she reflected back on a pivotal moment in her life, and she urges us to feel the feelings, right? Feelings are made to be felt, especially as you're heading into a new year and reflecting and really processing the lessons that you can bring with you.
I've been thinking about how I wanted to answer your question, and it's kind of a heavy one, but it's the one that began my entire life, so I'm going to have to go with it. I just kept thinking about the moment, 18 years ago, when I found myself sitting on a very cold bathroom floor, shaking from a vicious hangover and terror, and holding a positive pregnancy test. And I, at that moment, had been lost to addiction for, I guess, about 15 years. I became bulimic when I was 10, and that just evolved into all the different isms. And so in that moment, on the bathroom floor, I was just so broken and so sick. I had burned every bridge in my life, as many addicts do. And still, there could have been no worse candidate for motherhood on earth, okay? And still, something inside of me just was like, yes, this very well could be my last chance to come back to life. And I am going to do it. I'm going to get sober. I was 25 years old at that point, but that was the beginning of my life.
Wow. Amazing. And in reading that portion of your book too, in Untamed, I remember rereading it because I was like, okay, just kind of trying to feel in and being like, wow, this was the turning point. And you talked about you were trying to become a grown-up and growing at the same time or something like that. Yeah. I underlined it and highlighted it. And I was like, holy shit, this is big. And you did it. But was it an instant, Glennon? Was it like, that's it? This is all changing now? And then the decision was made, or how did it transform into taking place?
Yeah, so I think sobriety is always a one-time decision and then an every minute decision for the rest of your life. That's why it's so freaking exhausting. Mm-hmm. But that day, I'll tell you about that moment. I called my sister, and she came to my home, and she literally picked me up off the bathroom floor and walked me to her car and took me to my first recovery meeting. Yeah, and I just remember sitting in that circle and listening to those people tell their stories and thinking, these are the first honest people I've ever met in my life. Mm. It was like that moment of not knowing where to go or what to do and just trusting my sister to take me to the next right place is where I kind of found my people, and those people are the people who ushered me through into the next, that scary time where you've made a decision, but it's never like from the decision to the next thing, right? It's like always this abyss of time where you don't know what the next thing looks like. You just know you're done with the last thing. And so in the middle of that really wild transition time where Abby describes it as like when you're on the monkey bars, mm-hmm. and you have to let go of one for a minute to get to the next one. Mm-hmm. It's like that letting go time that is so scary and also so transformative because it's like you have to change in between to become prepared for the next thing.
Yes. It's like that quote. Have you heard when one door closes, another one opens, but there's hell in the hallway? I'm like, yeah, that hell in the hallway.
Hell in the hallway. Yeah. Hell. It was hell. It's so funny because not enough people talk about this part of getting sober, which is like, I was an addict for so long and I just hurt so many people and hurt myself and my family and they were just in so much pain and they were so afraid and everyone wanted me to get sober so bad. And it's like, you feel like, okay, I'm doing it now. So now my life's going to be good because I did the hard thing. I'm getting sober. But actually early sobriety is hell. It's hell in the hallway. It's like all I remembered every minute of the day when I was getting sober was like, oh yeah, this is why I started drinking in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I started binging. This is why, because being human with no, none of those distractions we use to numb it out is so hard. And I just feeling all my feelings for the first time. And that's brutal when you haven't practiced it ever.
Oh, Mack truck, hitting you in the face.
Yes. Hell in the hallway.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I've been thinking, who could I bring on the podcast to talk about sobriety? Because I can imagine how many people right now in quarantine are just struggling. I know even my own friends have said, yeah, I've been drinking more wine than usual. And I grew up in an AA household. My parents have been in recovery, I think, for like 40 years now or something. And so it was kind of alongside Catholicism, our religion of, I learned a lot of the one day at a time, this too shall pass, all of it has such a structure and applies to everyone, right? I feel like everyone should go to AA. But I've struggled with alcohol in my life. And I think about how you talk about doing that hard thing and kind of where people are right now, if they're listening and they're struggling, maybe you're hungover and this is hard shit we're in right now in a pandemic. And I heard you say this morning that you want to turn the whole world into one big AA meeting during your
we kind of are meetings right now.
Yeah, we've kind of been sent to our room a bit. What would you say to the person that might be listening right now who knows that maybe they're not quite even sure if they have a problem or not, whatever that means, but they want to make a change?
Yeah. Well, first of all, a funny thing is like most people who don't have alcohol problems don't think all day about whether or not they have an alcohol problem.
So there's a sign.
Right? So there's a sign right there. Like but also I think that this idea of feeling like we're in early recovery right now, I think it applies to everybody, not just people who are worried they're drinking too much. I mean, I think that this time for us, I run a nonprofit that serves women and children in need. So you can imagine the needs coming in are just tripled and quadrupled, and people are in so much pain, and people have lost so much, and all of that is very real and very scary. And then on top of that, all of that stuff that's going on out in the world, we are all suddenly stuck in our homes if we're lucky to have them. Like we are stuck. And to me, it feels a lot like, it's like, those snow globes that, you shake and the snow kind of flies all over the place. And then if you stop shaking, it all settles and there's like some solid, unmoving thing in the center. I think that's what's happening right now. It's like the snow is settling. I think that we as human beings, we try to keep our snow globe shaken up, right? We keep ourselves very busy and distracted from that thing in the center of us, which is the essence of the human experience, which is always true and has always been true, which is that we are extremely vulnerable and nobody is in control down here. And most of our systems are broken. And at the end of the day, we really just have each other, that's always true. But now we don't have any of the things that we use to keep us distracted from that truth of being human, right? We are just stuck inside our homes, stuck with ourselves, stuck with our feelings, stuck with our people, stuck with the truth. Like it really feels to me like one giant settling of the snow globe. And that is what early recovery is. So I think that this time right now, it applies to everybody, whether or not you have a drinking problem, because we all have things that the reason why you're saying everyone should go to AA is because people who are addicts often get the gift of recovery, but the gift of recovery isn't just quitting drinking. It's a path. It's a way of life. It's a commitment to dealing with life on its own terms without numbing or rushing or using any of the things that we use to keep our snow globe shaken up. Right? So
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So everybody at this moment has like a little slice of the gift of recovery, which is the practice of facing all of these fears and truths about being human head on, right? And it's excruciating at first. What it feels like at first is just utter shit. Like the reason we feel like shit right now, the reason why we're exhausted, the reason why we're like, a lot of us are walking around like zombies, the reason why some of us are crying, it's because it's this hard, right? I remember going to my 5th meeting on my 6th day of sobriety, and I was in this early snow settling period. And I just remember standing up and I said, my name is Glennon. I've been sober for 6 days and I just feel awful. I feel awful 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I just feel like there must be some kind of secret to life that everyone else has that I don't have, because I just think that life is harder for me than it is for everyone else. I just feel like I'm doing everything wrong. I'm doing life wrong. And this woman came up to me after the meeting, and I can remember every like perfect wrinkle on her face. Like I remember everything about her. And she just looked at me and she said, honey, I need to tell you something that somebody told me in early recovery. She said, the reason why it feels so hard right now for you is not because you're doing life wrong. It's because you're finally doing it right. She said, doing life right, living life on its own terms is really hard. Feeling all of your feelings is really hard, which is why so few people do it. And if there's any secret at all, it's just that all feelings are for feeling, not just the easy ones, the hard ones too. All feelings are for feeling. And the only thing worse than feeling it all is missing it all. And I'm telling you, sister, that I did not know before that lady told me that all feelings were for feeling. I believed what our culture teaches us, that happiness is for feeling. And all those other emotions like fear and doubt and anger and envy and all of those emotions are a mistake, right? Those feelings are for being ashamed of, and they're for numbing, and they're for fixing, and they're for deflecting, and they're for ignoring. And so this idea that actually every single one of those feelings, if we allow them, if we let them enter us and we don't hot potato them, we just let them change us, that they do change us, right? That they have some sort of power inside of us that is uncomfortable, but is also transformative. And so that is the power of this time, I think, that we will all feel like crap for a long while. And there will be transformative power of this time. I've seen it too often to not trust that process.
I'm looking at your book here, page 112, and you're having a conversation with Liz again, and you're talking about the difference between uncomfortable truth or comfortable lies. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think this is, talk about a why not now moment where you get to decide. It's like, am I going to swim in the sea of sameness of uncomfortable truth or comfortable lies, or kind of venture out into that uncomfortable truth? So I mean, that was a huge moment for you, obviously, in your life and in the book. But tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that particular time and story and conversation was about when I was deciding whether or not to, I was madly and deeply in love with Abby, and I was trying to decide whether to follow that, to honor myself that I knew that, or just pretend that I didn't know that and abandon myself again, which I know that we're all familiar with, right? Having that deep knowing and deep longing and still thinking, no, that will disrupt the universe too much, right? That will make my people uncomfortable. That will threaten my career. That will do all the things that it will do. It will destroy this. It will destroy that. And so instead we choose to destroy ourselves, right? By not honoring what's next. And so I was trying to decide all of that. And I think that quote was beautiful that Liz said, that I was talking about, how will I tell Craig? How will I tell the kids? And she said, don't forget that every lie, even if it makes people comfortable, is an unkindness. And every truth, even if it makes people uncomfortable, is a kindness. And I believe that to be true. I also just believe that in retrospect, and not in situations that have to be as dramatic as mine. I mean, falling in love with a woman and, dismantling my family and coming out publicly and, all of those things, those were so dramatic. But this happens all the time in smaller ways to everybody. We're in that conversation and we hear that, Grace's dog whistle, or we hear something that owes a response, right? That begs a response. Like our inner self, our untamed self is saying to us, say something, do something. But we're afraid because if we say or do the thing, there will be a price to pay, right? There's a cost to it, which is that it will cause discomfort. It will cause awkwardness. It will cause conflict. It will make other people uncomfortable. Right. And I think what we're finally realizing is that there is a price to pay either way. There is a price to pay if we don't honor the uncomfortable truth. Right. And that price is that we slowly die inside.
And the one-way liberation, that there's no such thing as a one-way liberation, that in a way, that is permission, I think, for a lot of people. Like, oh. So can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that, or what was meant by that?
Yeah, I would say, I hope it's more than permission even. I hope it's like duty, right? I hope it's like not only do you have permission to liberate yourself from whatever situation is caging you, you have the duty to do it. Because when you free yourself, I think about, how will I break my husband's heart? When we were divorcing, how will I do this? I care so much about him. He's such a good man. I mean, we had our struggles for sure, but we had worked to heal from them. And how will I do this to him? And it's funny, we talk now, we're dear friends. And now we think like, oh my God, what if I had not done that? It freed him because we were living a lie, right? I didn't deserve to be slowly dying inside, and he didn't deserve to be married to a woman who was slowly dying inside. Right? We have to let the truth live outside of our bodies because, when the idea of one-way liberation is that there is no such thing as one-way liberation, is that when we allow ourselves to live fully as our truest selves, we grant permission to everyone around us to do the same.
100%. It's art, and it's
it's so subtle because the reader doesn't really know anything until they dive in, and you take them along without even realizing it. It's an untamed journey of the reading. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And the cover's it's just rad. Just absolutely rad. Okay. For anyone who is wondering who Tabitha is.
Yeah.
Could you share in whatever way you'd like, just the opening? And it's just so powerful.
Yeah. So, I have had basically the ideas of this book swirling inside of me since I was 10 years old. I've just always felt like, I guess I could say I just felt like I was chasing the wrong things, like I was trying to be what culture told me to be. I was trying to be a good girl, and I was trying to be a good mom, and I was trying to be a good wife, and I was trying to be a good woman, and I was trying so hard, chasing these ideals, and felt so exhausted and sort of unseen and I don't know. I just had this longing, inside of me for something realer and truer, and so I had taken my girls to the safari park, and we were at this thing called the Cheetah Run. Okay. Just waiting with all these families, just sweating as you do at these safari parks. And this woman, zookeeper, she walks out and she's holding the leash of a lab, a freaking Labrador. And I'm like, you know what? If this woman tries to tell my children that this lab is a cheetah, I'm leaving, right? She says, okay, you guys, do you think this is Tabitha the cheetah? And they all say, no. And she says, you're right. This is Tabitha's best friend, Minnie the lab. We raised Minnie alongside Tabitha to tame her. And now everything that Minnie does, Tabitha wants to do. So first we're going to watch Minnie run the race, and then Tabitha is going to run the race too. So Minnie lines up at the starting line, and this little weird Jeep thing lines up in front of her with a dirty pink bunny tied to the Jeep. Jeep takes off, the bunny takes off, the lab chases the bunny, and then it's Tabitha's turn. So Tabitha walks out of her cage, and oh my God, this animal, she's just I just get the shivers the second I see her. She's got these rippling muscles and silk-looking skin, and she's just majestic and powerful. And then she lines up at the starting line, and the Jeep takes off. And of course, Tabitha, this wild, powerful, majestic animal, has been trained to believe that her job is to chase this dirty pink bunny. So she chases the dirty pink bunny, crosses the finish line, and everybody cheers. And I just stood there and it was one of those moments where it was what metaphor is, where you're seeing something that is real, that you can see, that perfectly crystallizes everything inside of you, like the invisible feelings that you can't see, right? Because I looked at Tabitha and I thought, oh my God, if a wild animal like a cheetah can be tamed enough to forget her wild, to forget who she is, and spend all day, every day chasing dirty pink bunnies, so can a woman, right?
Yes.
And then this woman, this little girl, she raised her hand. She says, but isn't Tabitha sad? Doesn't Tabitha miss the wild? And the zookeeper said, oh, no. Tabitha was born in captivity. She doesn't even know the wild. She has a good, happy, safe life here. And I just looked at that animal and thought, there's no freaking way that there's not something inside of her that doesn't know that it was supposed to be more beautiful than this, right?
Yes.
That part of all of us, that is that longing, that is that, I guess it's just the ache of our imagination, the ache of our imagination that looks at our relationships and our work and our world and just thinks, I don't know, my hunch is that it was all supposed to be more beautiful than this. Right? Mm-hmm. That's our wild, right? Mm-hmm. That's our wild. We're born into captivity. We are born inside of structures and institutions and nations that need us to get into line and forget our individuality in order to maintain status quo in every way. But there is a longing inside of us that calls us to consider reality to not just be what we can see outside of us, but what we can imagine inside of us. right? I really believe that about imagination. I believe that imagination is not where we go to escape reality. It's where we go to discover the ultimate reality that only we were born with, that we were meant to unleash and give birth to on this earth right now to change it. Well, that's the story of Tabitha.
And we're taught to be grateful for that cage, for that, you know, because it, and that's what, gosh, it's just the metaphor, as you said, instantly it was full body chills, right? And just, I know, like everyone else who reads your book, there's body intelligence baked into it. It's like you were like, cue heart race, cue chills. But it is true. I think that struggle with, but I should be grateful. You should be grateful. Yeah.
That's it. And especially for women. I mean, that's what we're taught over and over again. That's why I included the story, my version of the story of Eve in the beginning, because, you know, the most seminal freaking, you know, foundational story that many of us are taught is that, you know, everything was great. And while it was just Adam and God, the two bros, but then Eve came and she couldn't just be grateful for what she had. She wanted more and she went for it. And that's how all suffering was unleashed on the earth. Like that. The story of women not going off the path, of women not following their curiosity, of women not asking for more is baked into every cultural fairy tale, every story that we have. And that is because it is very important for cultures who are based in patriarchal ways to not allow women to feel like they can ask for more, right? So that the same message coming in sideways is just be grateful. Just be grateful for what you have. Just be grateful for what you have. That's another way of saying, don't you dare ask for more.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And also it's just this constant gaslighting. Like for women, you know, it is a constant universal gaslighting of women in one way, because it's like saying, don't you dare ask for more is another way of saying, what's wrong with you? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. You're crazy. Like you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. Everything's fine. Look, one of the reasons I love that story of Tabitha is because had Tabitha had a voice and someone said, what's wrong, Tabitha? Why are you a little down today? She might say something like, I don't know. It's so weird. I just have this feeling, this hunch, this longing. I just feel like I want to sleep under, you know, a star-filled sky, and I want to chase and kill, and I want to, run and run and run with no cage. And then she'd look at her cages and she'd be like, but this is all there is. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's
I'm
silly
crazy
to want something that doesn't exist or something. Yes.
So silly to want something that doesn't exist. Right? But she's not crazy. She's a goddamn cheetah. Right?
Yes.
She's living as a lab. That's why she feels crazy, because she's living as a lab. That's how I feel about us as women in many, many ways. Like that we are not crazy. We are actually just freaking exhausted and unfulfilled because we're chasing dirty pink bunnies all day, because we've been trained to live as labs instead of, returning to and trusting ourselves, our wild.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, everyone. I am excited to share that the Renegade Brand Bootcamp is back. We are getting ready for the first program in 2021. However, it has changed. It is new and improved. It is now the Renegade Accelerator. Are you ready to accelerate your life? Or maybe your career is in a season of expansion. Applications are now open for the 2021 Renegade Brand Bootcamp with a new name, introducing the Renegade Accelerator. I think we can all use a reset after 2020. This program is for you if you're ready to take action on your why not now idea. Maybe that means starting the company, launching the podcast, writing the book, or doing more public speaking, even if it is virtually. Maybe you're in the corporate world and you want to inject your why into what you're doing. At the end of the day, that's exactly what creates connection. And connections convert. My life work is to help guide women through this very stage in their lives. down the black diamond mountains of business and life, I see superpowers in people that they don't necessarily see in themselves yet. Many years ago, I went to Mark Cuban and I asked him for some investment advice. I thought I was going to get some real estate or stock market kind of advice. No. He said, invest in yourself. Invest in your own growth, invest in yourself, and bet on yourself. This is the best ROI you will ever find. The Renegade Accelerator is the perfect opportunity to invest in yourself. This program truly is the career love of my life. The reason why I love the program so much is because I'm able to create a mosaic, a collection of like-minded, like-hearted, driven women who come together to level up. Past renegades have gone on to make millions of dollars, appear on the Today Show, and accelerate their life and career in a way they never imagined was possible. They learn the renegade mentality directly from me, and I share everything I've learned over the past 20 years in business. It's equal parts education, collaboration, accountability, and community. So if you're a renegade and you're on your way to greatness, I want to help you get there a little faster. I want to guide you through this accelerator. We are accepting applications for our 2021 program, and you're welcome to check out everything about the program at renegadeaccelerator.com. Or if you just remember the old name better and it's a little easier for you, you can still head that direction too. It's the same destination, renegadebrandbootcamp.com. At the very least, if you're considering this program, if you're interested, just sign up for our emails because I will walk you through the process in helping you determine if this is the right fit for you and if now is the right time for you. All right, now we're going to hear from Duncan Wardle. He was one of my favorite guests on the show because he thinks differently. He has the cred to back that up too, right? Former head of innovation and creative at Disney. You don't just get that job. He has proven that this is just the way he leads his life, both in business and personally. Duncan was so kind to come in and speak to my Renegade Collective Alumni Network, which is the alumni network for the Renegade Accelerator. And he did a session with us, a workshop. The impact, the ability to kind of go through his process and understand how he approaches challenges, opportunities was tangible. And I'm so grateful. In these clips and in the entire episode, you hear some of these tangible tactical things. And it's one of the things where this is a practice, right? This isn't something you do once. This is something you do daily. And here's Duncan.
We're all born creative. When you were a little girl, for Christmas or your birthday, you were given a gift and it came in an enormous box. And you were so excited and you spent ages ripping the gift out of the box. And then what did you spend the next 5 days playing with? The box. Mm-hmm. Yeah, why? It was anything you wanted it to be. It was your spaceship. It was your rocket ship. It was your fort. And then we go to school and the teacher tells us it's just a box. And our innovation and creativity starts to get challenged from a very, very, very young age. But you all hear people say, actually, I'll ask you, do you think you're creative?
I do. I actually do. I bet most people would say no.
That's right, because they've been told for years they're not. Mm-hmm. So do you think you could draw like Pablo Picasso?
Sure. I don't want to draw like him. I want to draw like myself. No, that's where I would get my limiting beliefs. You got it right there.
So now grab your pen and paper.
Okay.
I want to picture your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your children, whoever you want. Just picture one person. Get them in your mind's eye. Don't close your eyes, but you must not look down at that piece of paper. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to draw their face starting from now. You may not look down. Don't forget that beautiful smile, the dimples, those lovely eyelashes, the ears, the chin, eyebrows. Don't forget the ears, that lovely hair.
What I haven't told you is that I have scented markers that I'm using. So I also have a blueberry scent to inspire me.
Okay, now All right, so your 15 seconds are up.
Mm-hmm.
Now look down and tell me if you can draw like Pablo Picasso.
I can. Better.
You see? Rock shopper. So we're all, people in finance, people in HR, people in IT, we're told we're not creative. Well, that's nonsense. I define creativity as the ability to have an idea and innovation as the ability to get it done. And we can all have an idea. The biggest challenge for most of us is the older we get, the more experience we get, the more we jump into what I call our river of thinking. My river of thinking on Disney and the first 20 years of my career, public relations, very wide, very deep, very fast flowing, enabling me to make quick and informed decisions. But we are being asked to get out of that river of thinking more and more often, more and more disruptive. Goodness knows in the last 6 weeks, we're going to have to disrupt just to survive, let alone thrive. And so I just developed a toolkit to stop people thinking the way they always have and to help them get out of that river of thinking and think differently.
Amazing. I want to talk a little bit about just getting comfortable. So as in my experience, when I get comfortable with being uncomfortable and continuously kind of push what that means and that edge, good things happen. When you were at Disney, did you find that you were just almost becoming kind of comfortable with all these crazy things that you were doing?
No, I loved the ideas. I had no idea if I could pull them off. So, when we were launching Toy Story and I said, hey, what was Buzz Lightyear's dream? His dream was to fly, but he couldn't fly. And I said, well, what if he could? And they all looked at me like, oh, yeah, how are you going to do that? I said, I'm going to send him on a space shuttle. And everybody looked at me like I was totally mad. I had no idea if I could pull it off. If you know you can pull it off, it's iteration, not innovation. And so, but I negotiated a deal. And yes, I sent my son's Buzz Lightyear to space on a space shuttle. He's the longest serving astronaut in space. He served 18 months on the International Space Station. I also convinced NASA to bring him home when they hadn't planned on bringing him home. I phoned them up. I said, hey, when are you bringing Buzz back? And they were like, well, we're not. I said, well, what do you do with the stuff you take up? They said, well, we just open the hatch and push it out. I was like, you can't incinerate Buzz Lightyear in the Earth's atmosphere. I'll leak it to the world's press that NASA killed Buzz Lightyear. And so God bless them, they brought him home. And he's now in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum.
That's amazing. So for people listening and they're maybe just feeling like they need some change, some innovation in their life, and they have an idea, but they just don't know what to do first, or maybe they're scared, right? What are some of your tips for them in terms of getting that process started?
Well, there's two or three. We all live inside organizations which tend to sort to no because we tried that last year, no because no because that's not the way we do it here, no because we don't have enough money. And we all start, the more experience, the more expertise we get, the more we start with the word no because. I encourage anybody listening to start with the words yes and actually we'll demo it now for them. Are you more familiar with Star Wars or Harry Potter?
I would say Star Wars. But it's limited. Okay. I got to tell you, Duncan. But we'll give it a shot.
I'm going to come at you with an idea for tonight's party. We've been given $100,000, pretty good budget. Each time I come at you with an idea, I would like you to respond with the words yes and then build on that idea. So I was thinking I could come to South Dakota and we could turn your house into the Death Star.
Yes, and we could make the forest was it desert? Is that where they were in Star Wars?
Yes, and we could bring the South Dakota Philharmonic Orchestra in, all dressed as stormtroopers with their instruments, and Darth Vader could conduct them with his lightsaber.
Yes, and some of the deer and the elk that roam around, they could participate too.
Oh, yes, and we could do an intergalactic food and wine festival.
Yes, and we could invite the presidents from Mount Rushmore.
Exactly. Yes, and so here's the thing. Let me ask you, when we had finished, do you think our idea had got bigger or smaller?
Definitely bigger. I love it. Yes, okay. Absolutely.
And far more importantly, when we had finished, whose idea was it?
Ours as a collaborative.
Bingo.
Yeah, bigger.
The moment you can transfer the power of my idea to our idea is the moment you accelerate its opportunity to get done. If you tend to be a reductionist, if you're reporting and working with reductionists, people who constantly shoot your ideas down, just remind them and yourself, we're not green lighting this idea for execution today. We are just greenhousing it together. And so signaling is very important. I very clearly signal, guys, we're in an expansive session today. You don't get to say no because. I took over a room. In fact, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank took over. Everybody has an art school within 5 miles radius of where they go to work. Their kids need a project. What if they took over your boardroom, ripped out the table, and painted a greenhouse around the room, put a green carpet down, call it the greenhouse, and everybody knows when they come into the greenhouse what behavior is expected of them. They're expected to be expansionist. American Idol, Randy, Paula, and Simon, what did they used to sit behind?
A desk.
Yeah, and what was the role of Randy, Paula, and Simon?
Judge.
Yeah, the moment you put somebody behind a table or a desk, they will think reductionist. But you bring them out. So instead of standing at the front of a room and doing your boring PowerPoint presentation as you always have, and they would judge your work. By the way, when the calendar Outlook, do not say the word presentation, because then they're judging it 5 days before they walk in the door. Take your presentation, print it out, stick it around the walls, invite your client, your boss, to go for a walk with you. Start in one corner with the objectives, the success criteria, your hypotheses, consumer insights. Finish with your final recommendation, cover that page because we know they read ahead. When you walk with someone, you will very quickly notice you turn a presentation into a conversation. And instead of judging your work, they will build on it. And be careful of your choice of words. If you say, what do you think? People will think reductionist. But if you ask them as you go, could you help me build on this work? Could you help me think about this a different way? You'll elicit a completely different response. The other thing I would encourage people to do is always bring in a naive expert to every ideation you run. These are people, they're chosen. Their only success criteria is they don't work for you or your industry. What does that give them permission to do? It gives them permission to ask the silly questions that you won't ask in front of your peers because you're embarrassed that you don't know the answer. It gives them permission to throw out the audacious idea. They will not solve the challenge for you. That is an unrealistic expectation, but they will say something to make you think different. And I'll give you an example. We were designing a new retail dining and entertainment complex for Hong Kong Disneyland. I had in the room with me 12 white male American architects over 50. That's called groupthink. I invited in a young Chinese female chef because she was the antithesis of everybody in the room. And I gave them the following challenge that I'm going to give you now for your pen and your other piece of paper. I asked them, and I'll ask you now, I'm only going to give you 7 seconds. You can look down. Please, would you draw a house? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pen down. Let me describe your house to you, and you tell me how accurate I am. It's a square. Inside the square is one door. It's in the middle of the ground floor at the front. There are 2 windows. You've probably drawn bars over them. And the roof is the shape of a triangle.
Pretty much. Pretty darn close, yes. I have a tree and a chimney, though.
Oh, well, bro, and well done you.
So creative.
So you just went into your river of thinking, as did the architects, of what a house should look like. The young Chinese chef just drew dim sum architecture, which none of us had seen before. It was a round bamboo dish that your dim sum will come in with a pork ball, a shrimp ball, and a little Chinese lady waving out the window. We all laughed when we held up our pictures because ours were identical, because we realized we stayed in our river of thinking of what a house should look like. She gave us permission to get out of that river and think differently. On the way out the door, somebody slapped a post-it note over her drawing that said, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand positioning for the Shanghai Disney Resort, the guy did everything we did, was distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. Another tool that's very useful is simply re-expressing the challenge to help stop you thinking as you always have. So let's say I was coming to South Dakota. You and I are going to go into business, and we're going to open a car wash together. Tell me the 3 or 4 essential ingredients we must have.
Water, soap, and cars.
Okay, pretty good list. So screw that. You and I are going to go into business, and we are going to open an auto spa. Now, what could we do in our spa?
Masseuses.
Masseuses.
Steam room.
Steam room. So here's the thing. In less than 10 seconds, I stopped you thinking the way you always do, your river of thinking, of considering what you know to belong to a car wash, water, brushes, soap, cars, and I got you to consider what could be in an auto spa, masseuses, baristas. So this tour was created by Walt Disney on July 17th, 1955, when he opened the doors to Disneyland. He said, we will not have any customers in our park. We will only have guests. Not only that, we will not have any employees in our park. We will only have cast members. There will be cast asked for a role in the show. And with that simple re-expression created a level of hospitality that's never been replicated or duplicated since. In 2011, had we have asked the question, how might we make more money? By the way, very dangerous question. That worked from 1920 to 2020. But guess what? Generation Z doesn't care. They care more about your purpose than your profit. Not only will they not buy your products and services if they don't believe in what you stand for, they don't want to work for you. Well, how the hell remain relevant 10 years from today if this generation doesn't want to work for you? You'll be gone. And so by simply re-express it, if we'd said, how might we make more money? We'd have put the gate price up at the theme parks by 3%. Everybody would have still come, and we'd have made our quarterly results. That is iteration. It is not innovation. Instead of that, we reversed the question from car wash to auto spa, and we said, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point? Now, have you been to a Disney park?
Yes.
And what would you consider to be the biggest pain point?
The lines.
Exactly. So we said, what if there were no lines? What if we did away with the front desks in our hotels? What if we eliminated the turnstiles at the front of the park, the need to stand in line for your favorite characters' meet and greets or attractions, or to pay for merchandise or food? We didn't know the answer. If you know the answer, it's iteration, not innovation. So we looked around the world, and sure enough, RFID technology had been invented a long time before we decided to invest in it. Now, when you come to the Walt Disney World Resort, you receive your Disney's Magic Band in the mail. It is RFID enabled. It is your room key. You don't check in or check out anymore. There are no turnstiles at the entrance to the 4 parks anymore. You just walk in. You have your reservations for your favorite 3 character meet and greets or your favorite rides. If you want to pay for merchandise and have it sent to your hotel room, you touch it once. If you want it to your house, you touch it twice. If you've saved your lunch on your smartphone, I've got my hot dog with my pickles on the side and go to Pinocchio's Village House for lunch today. Hit save. When I walk into the restaurant knows I'm here. I touch table 47. Food comes fresh to me. Had we have said, how might we make more money, we'd have made 3%. But because we reversed the question and said, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point, the average consumer today has between 90 and 120 minutes free time a day they didn't have 4 years ago, which has resulted in record revenues on food and beverage, record revenues on merchandise, and guest data that you can't believe, because now 25 million visits a year are live crowdsourcing the future design of every product and service Disney creates by simply telling them what they like and what they don't. Another thing that we hear from every single industry is, oh, but I've got rules. Well, guess what? Everybody has rules. You know, if you're hosting an area twice the size of Manhattan Island with 25 million visits a year, you've got rules. But what if you broke those rules without actually breaking them? It's an incredibly simple tool to use, but can really help people think differently. Walt Disney created it. 1940, when he showed Fantasia, he wanted heat and mist pumped into the theatre, and the theatre owner said no. So he listed the rules of going to the theatre. It's dark, it's dirty, I have to sit down, etc. One of the rules he chose to break was, I, Walt, can't control the environment. So he said, well, what if I could? Well, that's not provocative enough. The more provocative your what if question, the further out of your river of thinking you will get. So he said, well, what if I take my movies out of the theatre? Well, that was an absurd idea. He said, if they couldn't be 2-dimensional because they'd fall over and I don't own screens? Well, what if I made my movies 3-dimensional? Well, if I make my movies 3-dimensional, what if I have people play the characters? Well, if I have people play the characters, what if I gave Cinderella a different land from Jack Sparrow and Davy Crockett so people would be immersed in her story? Oh, wait a minute, I'll call it Disneyland. It was also used by the founder of Netflix. He used to go to Blockbuster Video like you and me, and he simply got frustrated at all the rules of going to Blockbuster, so he wrote them down. You have to be kind and rewind. You have to drive to a physical store. You can only go during an opening hours. You can only get 3 at a time. They never have the one you want. You have to have a membership card. You have to pay a late fee. And he took one rule, the rule of I have to drive to a physical store, and he said, what if there is no physical store? And he looked around the world and he said, well, wait a minute. YouTube already exists. They're only streaming amateur content. Well, what if I just stream professional content? I'll do a deal with the movie studios. Nobody would have to be kind and rewind. Nobody would have to drive anywhere. I'll cut the rental off at 24 hours. Nobody will pay a late fee. I'll call it Netflix. I'll take my idea to Blockbuster 5 times. They'll turn me down 5 times, and I'll take them out of business in less than 5 years.
And for those people who are, maybe they no longer have a job, or they are at this point where they're thinking, I've always wanted to go out and do something myself and take that leap into entrepreneurship, but they maybe don't know what that is. They haven't identified it yet. Where would you advise them to start? Like, how would they find that thing?
Well, 4 years ago, I said, I'm going to do this. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody else. But here's what I did do. And this is the same advice I offer my children and any young people I speak to, and quite frankly, anybody else. Do what you love and you'll be really good at it. The only A I ever got in math was absent because I didn't show up for the exam. Or guess what? I wasn't in the finance team for a reason. I'm really good at helping people think differently and develop innovative ideas. But I love it. And because I love it, I'm good at it. And so I decided to take a design thinking model and just boil it down and make it easy, tangible, and fun. I think if you do what you love, you'll be remarkably successful. We all went to school. We all had favorite subjects. And guess which your best marks were in? Guess what? Your favorite subject. So do what you love. You will succeed.
And last but not least, Jason Mraz was an amazing interview. It was a surreal moment for me, kind of full circle moment. I remember listening to his song, A Beautiful Mess, when I was in a really critical inflection point in my life. And it felt like a beautiful mess. And it carried me through. That's what music does. But one of the things Jason talks about in this clip and also in the entire episode is storytelling. And truly, he is a master at storytelling. He shares his wisdom and insight. And when I spoke to him on the show about this, I picked up some different tips and things that I've started to implement myself, and you will too. So I hope that you enjoy this quick chat. And if you want to listen to the full episode, just head to that, which was not too long ago, actually. But you can find it in the Why Not Now podcast archives.
So occasionally when I get these ideas, I like to sit with that idea for a second and try to get a glimpse of that future. What does it feel like to have that project accomplished? Or what does it feel like to have that song written? Or what does it feel like to arrive in California? And it's a beautiful version of the future. So I have to think that maybe that voice is almost from my future self, giving me an invitation to like, come this way. It's going to be okay. And it's easy to see, well, there's 3,000 miles between me and that goal, or there's a mountain between me and the goal, and I don't have the gear to climb that mountain. But I rely on the vision that I've had of the future self possibility. I do rely on that, knowing that if I just put in this work, I get to celebrate with my future self. I'm so grateful to my former self for having the audacity to dream such a dream and to be so naive in thinking that we could succeed. But I'm so glad that my former self had the courage to do these things, because I sit now in that future seat in abundance. And I sit now in a life that is beyond how specific I dreamed it. And I still have the challenges on what I want to create going forward, but I know that it was only because I say it this way, like I had the stupidity to think that I would succeed, but it required that kind of carefree, I'm going to put all my passion in this project, regardless of how I'm taken care of on a day-to-day basis, because for me, that passion and that project is the reward. That's what I'm living for.
One of the things I read about your new body of work, Look for the Good, was it kind of started out as an experiment. And I believe when we experiment, we can't fail, right? It's an experiment. Yeah. It's a petri dish. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about how it came to be? I'm such an advocate of experimenting and playing.
Cool. Yeah. I knew I had wanted to make a reggae album for many, many years, but I'm not from Jamaica. I can only be a fan of reggae music. It's not really in my DNA, but I can be a fan of it. And through the years, I have found musicians, and more recently, a producer named Michael Goldwasser from Easy Star All Stars, who is phenomenal in this genre. And I had finished up my major label deal with Atlantic. I did 6 albums with them. And I honestly thought I was going to just go into farming. I was going to just maybe slow down on my sort of competitive songwriting and do a little more farming and a little more soulful music that could be anything. Could be gospel, could be reggae, could be just yoga music, could be chanting. Like I wanted to go outside of the pop boundaries. And I started playing around with reggae songs with Michael, and it all just came together so fast because I guess how we were feeling about 2020, this was last year, 2019 that I'm talking about. And we were imagining what kind of world we were going to be living in, certainly leading up to the election and then beyond. And so the songs are about coming together, about looking for the good, about choosing love over war. But then the songs also still have that good old-fashioned wordplay that I love, and concept songs that celebrate what music is or what time is or the calendar months, etc. And all of those things I think are inspired by farming. But long story short, we ended up with these great songs. And thought, these are too good. And if I try to put them out on my website or my YouTube page, maybe not enough people will hear them. So I ended up shopping it around to independent record companies and partnered up with BMG, like the world's largest independent record company, who helped me get it out to all the fans. And as we were getting ready to put it out, the U.S. continued to have an education, as we saw with the horrific murder of George Floyd. And the movement for Black Lives, which had already existed but really gained momentum earlier this year. And what I saw was an opportunity with this record, this experiment, this music that was meant for harmonizing humanity. I now have this ability to put this music out, and rather than just have words and say this album harmonizes humanity, I also decided I would take all the profits from this album and get it into the hands of programs that are actually doing the work to help harmonize humanity, such as Black Lives Matter, Equal Justice Initiative. Here in San Diego, we have Center for Policy Initiative. We have Rise San Diego, which helps build leadership specifically amongst Blacks for the whole community at large. Just so there's more representation in the U.S. and in local governments, et cetera. So this was all a bonus. Like all of this surplus money that I was sitting on from this album, Look for the Good, came because we decided to have fun and experiment with music in the backyard and sing about the kind of world we wanted to live in. And then the byproduct of that was we ended up with some great songs, a lot of musicians, all coming together to have this fun. When I sold the album to the record company, I was able to have enough that paid for the recording costs, which meant all the musicians got paid a great wage. There were engineers, everyone. But then the surplus that the record company gives you is just sitting there, and it's meant to live on until the royalties are collected. But I didn't need that surplus. Right, I've already set myself up in a way that I'm doing okay. And again, this album was just an experiment. So now with this surplus, I was able to award that, and I will award that going forward indefinitely as this record continues to generate eyeballs and ears listening. It will continue to generate royalties, of which we will distribute specifically for the Black Lives Movement. And it's separate from my own foundation, which has its own work. I wanted this album to become its own foundation, but it was never really the plan from the beginning. The plan was, let's just make great music and have some fun and do something new. And the ability for this album to serve on so many levels has become the greatest reward, that I never imagined.
As an entrepreneur and business person, what advice would you give to someone who's really focused on storytelling and sharing their why and their who?
Oh, and that they're into it already. They're into storytelling? Yeah.
No, let's say they have a new business, or they're really looking to connect and show up and show why they do what they do and who they are. And they're just not maybe they don't feel skilled in storytelling.
Sure. It's a challenge because I know that even on my own farm, our own landscape, I should have the camera with me all the time because there are so many beautiful little moments that are worth capturing and sharing with our followers, our fans, our customers. And it's hard because you want to feel great. I want to feel like, well, I didn't shave today, so I don't think I'm going to turn the camera on myself at this angle or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I realize I can be limited when I don't share. But there's so many platforms these days too, and each platform has kind of a different way to play with it. Instagram is very different than TikTok, which is very different than Facebook, which is very different from having your own blog or your own website. And all of that needs attention. And you could also get bogged down doing that and forgetting to do the actual work that the farm provides. So I have outsourced my help. I have a friend and neighbor who helps me manage the farm, Rachel, who is a beautiful voice for our farm. And she does the Instagram and Facebook posts for me because she's intimate with the bees. She's intimate with the flowers. And for me, it's okay to delegate that storytelling, knowing how vocal and passionate and intimate she is with the trees here. But in general, telling your story to the fan or to your follower, your customer, is so important because it's you who get to enroll them into just how special this product, this situation, this story is.
You have a massive platform and have lived a very interesting path thus far and will continue to. Have there been times where you've checked yourself and said, I might need to get a little more grounded? A little humbling season?
Oh, yeah. Many times. The farmer wears, I should say I wear many hats. And through farming, I've learned that everything has its season and its time. So in the winter, everything's fallow and dormant. But it's what's happening is underground, things are rejuvenating. And in the springtime, we throw out seeds and a bunch of things come up. And in the summertime, we decide which of those things, those ideas we're going to really focus on and cultivate. And in the fall, we take all those to market and we sell them. And then in the winter, we have hibernation and we sleep and we regenerate. Same thing for music, I found, is I'll start by throwing out a bunch of ideas. I'll write 100 songs and realize, okay, these 10 are great. And I'll turn those 10 into something that I really focus on and I record. And then comes time to take them to market and share them with the world. And then after that, you have to go home and regenerate. You have to go back to sleep. You have to go read some books, write in your journal, process what's been done. So then you can start that process all over again. And if I don't take that downtime to regenerate, I start to just repeat the practices of spring and summer, repeat. And then what happens is you run out of nutrition, you run out of soil health to grow what you're trying to grow. And it will result in a breakdown. And it's happened a couple of times, not violent or anything like that, or any way that's harmful to myself, but enough for me to just let my booking agents and managers know, guys, I am done. I can't answer one more question. I can't sing one more song. I have to go home and do my laundry. I have to go home and shop for groceries, work in my garden, be what I call a normal person, and put my feet on the ground so that I can tour around the world on these other seasons and speak like a real person. Because if I just live in hotels and airplanes and airports and my feet aren't on the ground, then I lose perspective of
relatability.
And relatability, yeah. And irrelevance is now, thanks to this pandemic we're living through, irrelevance and with social media exploding the way it has, I think that's something we all have against us right now, or we're at war against this great irrelevance that is coming. And so having the opportunity to put my feet on the ground and dive in. The first time it ever happened was around 2005. I did 2 albums back to back, just writing, touring, trying to win fans, trying to get on the charts, all that. And I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't have a spiritual path. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I want to eat. I was just kind of numb. So I took all of 2006 off and I dove into literature and yoga and some personal travel. And by 2007, when I'm writing songs and traveling again, I created the first work that really went global. That included I'm Yours and Beautiful Mess. And I know that came from taking that time off to do the work, to do the personal work, which gave me the strength I needed and the perspective I needed to write the kinds of songs that would fill me up, that would make me feel like I had a purpose. And since then, I've tried to repeat that kind of schedule. When an album cycle is done, I go home and I read and I work on my garden, and I try to figure out, well, what's my purpose now? Like, if I'm going to keep making music, what is its purpose?
What's one thing, Jason, that you find yourself learning over and over again?
Good question. That my life can change in a phone call. And it doesn't have to be a phone call, but I know that I've learned that my life can change in a moment. So with that, what I keep relearning is if I ever find myself starting to worry about money or worry about where's my next project going to be, or did I make the right call on this farming adventure we're on, blah, blah, blah. Like this, I guess, doubt, fear, whatever might cloud me, instead of giving it my attention and identifying with that and giving it even more weight, I trust that I'm not final. And that's what I keep learning. I keep learning that I'm not finished, and that time and time and time again, something happens that completely changes the outcome or the expectation or that I was having.
And that's a wrap. That is a wrap on 2020 for the Why Not Now podcast as we're moving into 2021, healthy, happy, and motivated to tackle our Why Not Now ideas. I want you to know how grateful I am for you listening, for showing up and letting me show up in your ears this year for another year. I know so many of you have been along the ride with me for years now with this podcast, and it is a passion project and career love of my life that I didn't even know I had. So for that, I'm so grateful for you because you've shown me what's possible by showing up for me. Also, if you enjoyed the clips from this episode, or even in the best of 2020 part 1, just head to amyjomartin.com/why not now, and you can search the name of the guest and listen to the entire episode. So if you want more, there's always more. You can head back. And for that matter, you can search any of the other guests, and there's a field right there in the webpage, and that will take you to that specific episode. With that being said, I look forward to the journey ahead of us. As always, we're so grateful for you to rate and review and just share your feedback about the show, because it allows us to deliver more of what you want and get better all around. So cheers to 2021. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/why not now. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time, and until then, why not now?